What's poppin', y'all? Welcome back to another great episode of Teed Up. I'm your host, Pierre, Pee Wee the Plug, Andreessen. On today's episode, we're going to dive into some of the play-in games that we've already seen, some of the ones that are on the horizon. Then we're going to rank the NBA playoffs matchup by matchup, what I'm feeling, what I'm not feeling, what I'm excited for, what I'm not excited for. And then also, we got some NBA news, and I want to start there, just rounding out the week of NBA news that we've gotten because there's been some things firing off as of late. I love around this time, you get the playoff excitement. Teams are, competing for a championship. But then you got the teams that missed out on the playoffs and the play-in, and they're trying to quickly figure things out for next season. So to start the conversation, we're going to end up in Phoenix. The Phoenix Suns have had a very, very adventurous week. They went on to fire Mike Budenholzer, which I want to stop and pause there. I'm understanding of going through 3 coaches in 3 years. I'm very understanding of that. But I also want to give them a little bit of a credit because I think it's ballsy to go through with it after doing it 2 times in a row. Coaching is such an important thing because at the NBA level, it's less about actually coaching. And I know that's going to sound crazy to a lot of people, but I feel like when you're doing youth basketball, high school basketball, college basketball, you're really coaching players a lot. I feel like when you get to these pro levels, it's almost kind of like baseball where you're just managing a bunch of different things. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to discredit any coaches because there are a lot of coaches in the game who are really good with X's and O's and matchups and schemes and different things like that. But along with the job, and some players and former coaches will tell you too, it's almost more important to be able to manage the players on your team. And that's a job in itself because you're talking about the professional level where a lot of guys on your roster were the best players in their state or in the country at high school. They were the best players on their college basketball team. You know what I mean? So you have egos. You have guys that are used to certain treatment, used to certain roles, used to certain, opportunity and leeway. And now you have to manage that 12 to 15 personalities, 12 to 15 egos, and kind of get it online. And it's a very tall and tough task, especially for a new head coach that's in that locker room with a group of players who've been there before. You're trying to develop and curate a culture for the younger players, the rookies that just came in. You're also trying to please the vets who've been there for 15, 17 years. And it can get even harder when you have Hall of Fame tier players because guys who have won before, guys who have been, league leader in scoring or MVPs, perennial all-stars, there are certain guys that I don't want to say they're hard to coach because a lot of those guys are coachable, but you do have guys that are kind of stuck in their ways, right? Like if you get to a team like the Phoenix Suns and you're a new coach like Bud or whoever that's trying to come in and introduce a new style or brand of basketball that you have for this particular team, it can be tough. And one of the stories that came out was Coach Bud trying to pull to the side a Bradley Beal, who, again, is a guy that's been in the league for X amount of years, so many years that I can't even remember at this point. It's at least 10-plus years. We'll go 12 years Bradley Beal has been in the league. This is a guy who's led the league in scoring. He's had playoff success with the Wizards, with the John Wall teams. He's been on the worst teams in the league. I think Bradley Beal has been an All-NBA player. He's a max contract guy. He's making, $60 million a year. So when you've done all of that, it's hard to try to condition somebody into changing the way that they play or the way that they do things. And again, the story was Coach Bud bringing Brad Beal to the side and asking him to try to mimic and be more of a Drew Holiday type of player. Bradley Beal felt away, understandably. And the response of this has been, as y'all would imagine, very interesting. The thing that I'm kind of confused with is that Coach Bud is a championship coach. He's won a championship with the Bucks. Drew Holiday played on the team. He's also been a guy that at every stop has kind of uplifted teams. I remember those Atlanta Hawk teams. He, more than anyone, should know, number one, it's kind of disrespectful to Drew Holiday. And I'm not sure Drew Holiday is going to take it that way. I did see that Drew Holiday did have a quote basically saying, like, I don't know why I'm even being mentioned. I'm just over here doing my own thing. I'm trying to win championships. Let me be. But I do think it's like a disrespectful thing towards Drew Holiday because it's almost like, and I know D'Angelo Russell wasn't trying to be disrespectful. He was actually trying to do what Coach Bud was asking Bradley Beal. But a couple years ago, D'Angelo Russell had a quote coming into the year for the Lakers where he was like, I'm going to be Derek White. And he obviously didn't mean it in a disrespectful way. He meant it in a glamorous way where, like, Derek White is doing everything for that team. He's being able to play with the ball, without the ball. He's guarding, and he's being a winning player for a team that has star players. So D'Angelo Russell was trying to morph his game into somebody who could complement these star players and just be a winning player on the floor, which I thought was very mature and respectable of D'Angelo Russell to self-reflect and figure out what's best for not only the team, but for his career. It's better for some of these guys to play that type of role of being a high-value role player than to just try to get in your bag and get your shit off every night. You know what I mean? Teams are kind of smarting up, and they're slimming the fat on isolation players and players trying to get in their own shit versus, like, let's just get a guy who is very self-aware and who's willing to do the dirty work on any given night and just be a winning team player. Again, I don't think he meant any disrespect, but, like, for the Drew Holidays and the Derek Whites who's doing that on a every single game basis, and we saw D'Angelo Russell had the right type of mindset, but he didn't have a Derek White type of season or a Derek White type of impact. And so what I'm getting at is, though it may not be anything that's directed to be disrespectful, the disrespect comes in a part of, like, thinking that somebody can just snap and be me. That's where it's like a slight to Derek White when D'Angelo Russell says that. That's where it's kind of like a slight to Drew Holiday when Coach Bud brings a player like Bradley Beal to the side and says, beat Drew Holiday. If I'm Drew Holiday and I'm Derek White, I'm trying to let it be known that you can't just snap your fingers and do what I do. That's why I'm so highly valued. You can't just go on the street and say, hey, you can't walk into the locker room one day and say, you know what, we need a Drew Holiday. Somebody beat Drew Holiday. It's kind of like a backhanded compliment, because on one hand, the compliment is we need this player. Like, what he does is so valuable that we need that, and I need you to try to be that. But then the backsided part of the compliment is thinking that somebody can just wake up and do what I do. And so that's the part where I'm kind of like, Coach Bud, with all of the success, all of the experience, being someone who has had firsthand and coaching Drew Holiday and seeing how important he was on the championship team you had, I was kind of scratching my head reading this and figuring this out. Like, why on earth would Coach Bud think of Drew Holiday as somebody that Bradley Beal should try to be at the snap of a finger? And does he not know who Bradley Beal is? Or has he ever watched Bradley Beal from Florida to Washington to John Wallace Wizards, like the Bradley Beal era where he was just over there by himself? Did he watch Bradley Beal with the Suns when he first got there before Coach Bud coached them? Like, does he have any idea who Bradley Beal is? Because if he does, then he would know Bradley Beal is just a different player than Drew Holiday. Bradley Beal has never been a guy that was getting paid to shut people down. That was, and I'm not saying Bradley Beal has been this, worst defender in the NBA, but he was a guy that was getting paid because he was averaging 30-plus points a night. You know what I mean? Like, when I first knew who Bradley Beal was, it was because of his silky smooth jump shot, in the high school ranks, and then he ultimately went one and done under Billy Donovan at Florida. And I do think Bradley Beal has the capability of being able to guard his position and do what he has to do as a team defender. We saw that in some of his stints with Washington when they were playoff teams. And I think he showed flashes here and there in his tenure with the Suns. But Drew Holiday is all-world defense. And when you hear Drew Holiday and you hear his name, the first thing you think of is defense. This is a guy who, a few years ago, when he was with the Bucks, I was like, man, he should be in Defensive Player of the Year conversations more based on what he does on a night-in-night basis defensively. You know what I mean? Like, Drew Holiday is one of the best, if not the best defender on a perimeter in the NBA over the last 5 to 10 years. Players, when they're asked, man, who gives you the toughest? Drew Holiday was the reoccurring name that we heard over the course of those years when players was asked who did they not want to see as the cross matchup defensively. So that was very strange to me. And when you hear different things like that, you start to make sense of the Suns season, because a lot of us walked away being like, man, the Suns had a disappointing year, but damn, they didn't even make the play-in. Like, you see some of these teams that made the play-in, it's like the Suns, y'all couldn't even do that. And then you hear stories like this. Then you hear about the meeting that the Suns and the Kevin Durant had, that's also been some news for them in the sense of they're going to sit down with Kevin Durant and Rich Kleiman, who is Kevin Durant's business partner, and they're going to figure out the pivot that makes sense for all parties included. Obviously, they're going to try to find a situation that they can benefit from as well, which I think is extremely important for them in the next phase. And then there was also a report that they admitted to Kevin Durant and Rich Kleiman that they regretted not informing him and his team that they were going to explore those trade options at the deadline. And so Kevin Durant was blindsided when he saw that his name was being made available by the Phoenix Suns, because previous to that, all that you heard was how much they wanted to win, how much faith they had in his team, and how Matt Ishbia was going to do any and everything he could to build a winner in Phoenix with the group of guys that they had. So it's been a very interesting route for them. And to circle it all back, I'm glad that they're going in this direction. I think it's going to be tough for them because they're over the last few years, they're now used to having playoff appearances, playoff success. Not that long ago, they were in the finals competing for a championship. Chris Paul, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, they have had the names in there. So now for the next 2 to 3 years, they're going to take a step back and they're going to have to get a draft pick in a lottery or something. You hear Kevin Durant being mentioned to the Rockets, who own the Suns draft pick, which could be like the 9th overall pick. You hear Kevin Durant being linked to a team like the Spurs, who have draft capital. They're projected to have like the 8th and 15th pick because they have their own pick and the Atlanta Hawks pick. So those are the teams that I'm looking at if I'm the Suns of trading with. I'm going to put Kevin Durant in a situation where he can go to a team that should be ready to compete, but we also get to get some type of lottery pick back, and then we'll get some young talent, Devin Vassell, Harrison Barnes. That's a younger talent with a veteran Harrison Barnes wing with a contract that should be able to match some of what Kevin Durant got going on. And then on the flip side, you have the Rockets, another lottery pick. They have the Cam Whitmores, the Jabari Smith Jr.'s of the world, Fred VanVleet, Dylan Brooks have contracts that should be able to make some things work there. I like those situations, but for the fan base, they've got to prepare for that, because now you're going to bring in a rookie who's going to be a lottery pick. You got to tamper your expectations when you bring in a rookie, especially if it's a guard or a big, which is more than likely the position that they're going to identify in the draft if they make this type of move. And then it's going to be Devin Booker with some high-valued veteran role players, the Royce O'Neals of the world, the Grayson Allens of the world. You'll bring in a Harrison Barnes. Maybe if you're lucky, you get a Devin Vassell. It could be a Jabari, a Cam Whitmore, a Reed Shepherd, more young talent. And you're going to take a step back from having this all-NBA, all-world NBA legend player surrounding Devin Booker. And I think it's going to be tough for the first year or so, but I think in the long run, it's going to allow them to take a huge step. So I'm proud of the Phoenix Suns for biting the bullet on a lot of the tough decisions that they made. There's even rumors that they might buy out Bradley Beal, and that could be the largest buyout that we've ever seen in NBA history. But again, I love when management and ownership and teams say, hey, we made mistakes. We're going to bite the bullet on these mistakes early, and we're not going to allow these mistakes to linger. I think the worst things that some of these teams do is they try to drag out the situation in hopes that there's some turnaround so that the move isn't under scrutiny. No, Phoenix, Coach Bud wasn't the coach. You went from Monty to Vogel to Bud, 3 in, 3 out in 3 years. Bite the bullet on it. It's tough. You're still paying 2 of them. Hell, you might still be paying Monty a little bit. That's 3 coaches that you're still, you owe $40 million to Coach Bud, and you only got 1 year. So that's fine. The Kevin Durant trade was supposed to take y'all to a higher echelon. All you got was 1 playoff series and no playoff wins. That's nasty, but bite the bullet. Don't drag it out even more, because then you bring Kevin Durant in for the last year. He walks. You get nothing for. That's even worse. You tried to go out and make a move for Bradley Beal, a sexy splash, put some names together. It didn't work. Don't drag it out. Figure that situation out and pivot. The quicker you pivot and rebuild, before you know it, 2-3 years, you're now looking at a team that's reconstructed and ready to compete again in the Western Conference in some form or fashion. You have Devin Booker staying dedicated to you. Rumor is he's going to get a 2-year extension, and he's going to finish out his career in Phoenix, which I like as well. So Again, a mess in the desert, but there's light at the end of the tunnel by biting the bullets early and not allowing those lingering problems to become too big of fires that you regrettably didn't put out sooner. Switching gears to another team that's kind of, I don't want to say in the same boat, but they've got their tall task of figuring out the direction for their team, the New Orleans Pelicans. They are hiring Joe Dumars to be the head of basketball operations. And one of the first things on the desk of his that's been mandated from the New Orleans Pelicans ownership is figuring out a trade for Zion Williamson. This was something that took me by surprise. We talked about it yesterday on the Numbers on the Board podcast about the idea of what direction the Pelicans would go. And I was against trying to trade Zion Williamson at this point. Zion is coming off of a season where he only played 30-something games. And though it's a small amount of games, to me, he looked as good as he's looked since he's been in the NBA. His shape, the movements, the burst is there. The athleticism seems to be, better than ever. And I'm buying in on that if I'm the Pelicans. The reason being is because I just don't think that if you make Zion Williamson available right now, you have as much leverage as you potentially could or would have had in the past. And I just don't think you give up on a talent like that for pennies on a dollar. You trade Zion right now, I don't know how many draft picks you're getting. I don't know what that package looks like. I don't know how you convince teams around the league to give you a king's ransom for a guy that you're trading because you don't have faith that he's going to be on the floor. If you're trading him because you don't believe he can consistently be on the floor, how are you going to convince another team to give you some crazy package in that same player that's making you trade him because you don't believe he can be on the floor? So then you're going to end up trading your investment, who you stuck with over this amount. You stuck with him this amount of years. If you were ever going to trade him, or if it was ever any doubt, you had years to do this. Yeah, years to do this. Now you're in a position where you're just coming off a season where your entire team was hurt. The entire team. And I know they've dealt with injuries for the last few years, but it was always a Zion and Ingram type thing, one of the top two players. This past year, Alvarado missed time. Herb Jones, Trey Murphy missed the start of the season, the end of the season. Zion only played 30 games. DeJounte Murray got hurt the very first game. He came back and then got hurt again with his Achilles. Jordan Hawkins missed time. Yves Missy, your star, standout rookie that you drafted from this past season, he missed some time, if I'm not mistaken. Ingram missed time. Even when you traded him, he was hurt. Literally the entire roster dealt with injuries. I just don't know what direction you go into after that, because you're not going to sell Trey Murphy. It's going to be hard to trade DeJounte after an Achilles injury. The DeJounte that you gave up Dyson Daniels for, by the way. Now you're going to trade Zion. I'm just not sure what direction you're going in. So for me, I would bring Zion back. I would have Herb Jones back next year. At some point, I'm getting Trey Murphy and DeJounte. It might not be at the start of the season, but at some point, I'm getting those guys back. I still have Jordan Hawkins, Alvarado, CJ McCollum, Yves Missy. I love the fit that they had with Kelly Olynyk. And then you potentially could have a top 3 pick this year. You have all that and you bring your top 3 pick. I think it kind of, alleviates some of the things that happened this past season. And if I'm a betting man, I would bet that they don't have that many injuries next season. You may still have a guy be hurt here and there, but the entire roster, if I was a betting man, I would bet a large portion of money that they don't have that many injuries. And then if you do, then you got to start looking in the mirror and figure that thing out. Then that's deeper than trades. At that point, that's something y'all are doing from a medical staff position that y'all need to figure out. And because they said that they were going to keep Willie Green for the most part, it made me think that they would give themselves another chance to, figure the Zion thing out. Because the worst thing possible is that you trade Zion, not only for pennies on a dollar, but you trade him at a time where he finally figures it out. He figures his body out. And he goes to another team and flourishes and is now a guy that's playing 65 to 70 games a year. You know what I mean? Or at least 60 games a year. If you can get Zion down on a science level of saying, hey, because the way your body has been, we're going to play you around 55 to 65 games a year. We're going to manage this thing like a Kawhi type situation. just to make sure you're always fresh. We're not putting too much stress on the body. We understand how you play, the physical, pressure that's being put on your joints and your knees, the ankles. We would just want to make sure everything is. If a team figures that plan out like that for him, and they're able to get a good return on their investment, the Pelicans are going to look extremely foolish, and they're going to probably be sick to their stomach, especially knowing that they may have been able to get a little bit more. So I'm watching that situation, and I'm hoping they figure that out for the better, because I wasn't too much of a fan of that. I just think that there's still some upside there with Zion based off how he looked in the 30 games he played this season. And a lot of people would say we've seen this story before, but my argument is still, when you look around the NBA, who's trading for Zion Williamson? And what are they trading? What team is trading for Zion? I don't see a bunch of landings, but he's not one of those guys, especially with the hesitancy to buy into him being able to be available. I just don't see what team is giving you a bunch of Kings rank. I don't see it. I don't see it. He plays a specific brand of basketball. He is going to be expensive. And then there's that same factor is, do we want to pour in that much and not be sure if he's going to be on the floor? All signs point to him staying on the Pelicans. And if they figure to go that direction, I think they won't regret it. But we'll see how that plays out. Couple things before we get into the play-in and the playoffs. The Chicago Sky, man. Shout out to the Chicago Sky. I want to give a nice welcome to Aisha Savika. And I also want to give a shout out to Haley Van Lith. We putting this thing together. We're going to have us a nice team next year. I love having a youthful team because you just have the ability to grow and progress. Nothing has to be rushed. It's the same thing with the NBA. I talked about it with the Suns a little bit. When you start to go in that direction, when you're just a little bit younger, all you have is time, and you allow your young players to develop. We got a nice front court we had in the last draft. We now got us a nice guard, and we got us a nice wing. We're putting us together something. So watch out for those Chicago Sky. But I wanted to send a congrats to everybody in the W that is now a part of the W. It's a special moment for the W, the NBA, the WNBA draft. It's always a kind of feel-good moment to see young people go from amateurs to professionals. And I'm a big Paige fan. So I just want to send love to our college girls who are now professional women. Shout out to y'all. And go Sky. So last night, I did get a glimpse, or I guess 2 nights ago when this drops, I was able to catch the play-in games, the first play-in games. We had the Magic versus the Hawks, and then we have the Warriors versus the Grizzlies. So we did some predictions on numbers on the board. I picked the Magic and I picked the Warriors. So I'm 2 for 2. Not that I'm keeping track because they're playing games, but I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't want to go at nobody's team. Hey, man, that first game was some bullshit. I was excited. I was sat down, prepared. This is play-in. This is now playoff back. I didn't get that. That first half dragged. It was very slow. Thank goodness Trae Young and the Hawks kind of woke up in the third. They fought and made it somewhat of a game. But when you're watching the play-in, especially coming off of March, right? Like the play-in game gives you that March Madness type of vibe. And I think that's the best thing, where we can look at what a team does on a nightly basis. We can look at how many points a guy averaged, what he shot from three, how they do this, how they do that. But when it's a single game elimination, all of that really goes out of the window. A guy who shoots 27% from three on that particular day could feel good and make 6 of them. Right? Like all of it is thrown out of the window. It ain't like a 7-game series where you look at the tendencies, the traits, and the personnel of a team, because you're going to get that over the course of the 7 games. But in that one game, all it takes is one player to act irregular. And we got that from the Magic last night. I picked the Magic because I just thought that there was no matchup that was going to be able to stay in front of Paolo Banchero. I just felt like he was a walking mismatch for the opposition in Atlanta Hawks, knowing that they don't have a Jalen Johnson on the floor. Shout out to my guy, Jalen Johnson. But in turn, my point stands. Anthony Black and Cole Anthony came off of the bench and was just guns blazing for the Orlando Magic. They made it very tough for the Hawks offense in that first half and at certain parts of the fourth quarter. I felt like Trae Young did a very good job in that third quarter. manipulating the defense, getting those guys in foul trouble, getting things going with his runner, playing with a little bit of a tempo for that team. But then I felt like in the fourth quarter, Trae Young put too much emphasis on drawing fouls. And he had a lot of shots that I felt like he was baiting or preparing to be fouled for, and he wasn't necessarily getting all of those calls. And that kind of took a different turn for them. And there also just wasn't a lot of creation outside of Trae Young. And I want to see that team address that this offseason as best as they can. I know that they're a work in progress. They can't fill every hole. And again, I think Jalen Johnson being out there on the floor for them last night would have made this an entirely different game. But I think I like Karis LeVert coming off the bench for them. He gives them somewhat of a punch. But in that starting lineup, you have Dyson Daniels, who's a lot of his focus is going to come on the defensive side of the basketball. And he can be a secondary, third option type playmaker and make smart, sound decisions. And I think Zachary Richardson now is a guy that's going to be able to be a sniper playing off of Trae Young. But I do think that somewhere they have to figure out, a way to kind of uplift. And I think that's been the hardest thing that they've been figuring out. They tried to bring DeJounte in for that. That didn't necessarily work out. I think Jalen Johnson is the proper answer. And I think Karis LeVert can handle that. But I would just love to see another bench guard or somebody even like a Dyson Daniels have a little bit more responsibility when Trae Young is off the floor. And then at certain spurts of the game, Trae Young being able to play off of somebody else. Because a team like Orlando, who is as good defensively, if they can key in on him and make it a little bit more difficult, it's not too many other options that they have to truly worry about. Even like Jalen Johnson. Jalen Johnson is really good, but Jalen Johnson is another guy that's going to play a bit off of Trae Young, unless he takes another step, which I'm not questioning. I'm not putting out of the question, but he's not like a guy that, you get in the ball to and you just go get us one on a consistent basis. So, and I know Zachary Richardson doesn't project to be that, and neither does Dyson Daniels. And I think at certain times, Trae Young having the ball top of the key, as dangerous as the pick and roll is, it gets a little bit predictable. And I think he's too good of a scorer to just have him playing in that one dimension. So that's something for them to figure out as they will. But I love what I saw from the Magic. Being able to get a win like that without Paolo and Franz Wagner having crazy games, I think is a good sign for them. The only tough thing is the reality is that their matchup is the Boston Celtics. You win a play-in game like that, and again, they allowed the Hawks to stick around a bit, especially, like I said, in that second half, they kind of came alive, and they made that a real game early on in the fourth before Cole Anthony Black, and a lot of those guys Wendell Carter kind of played them off of the floor. The reward is insane. You win that, you go crazy. Hey, we won. Yeah. Just to be like, oh shit, yeah, here, your reward is a matchup with the Celtics. Again, optimistic for the Magic and their fans. They made the playoffs. I think that was their goal. They are going to have some things that they have to figure out this offseason as well. Piggybacking off of what the Hawks conversation was, they're going to need offense in Orlando. I think the defense is just fine. I think you can't have everything, and I think you have to give to get. So I think you may have to go out to that market and look at Anthony Simons. Now, I know Anthony Simons is in the bottom of the NBA when you talk about defense, and especially in the advanced metrics or whatever metric you want to use. Anthony Simons is not a world-class defender. But I think you may have to substitute that for a little bit of the offense. Because as we see, you've tried to have this defensive-minded team and just have Paolo and Franz figured out. It ain't as easy as that. And I know they've had an injury-riddled season. But I think even last year where they were healthy and on fire and they played the Cavs, they played them well and they had 7 games. But I think you just need a little bit more of an offensive punch. And what Cole Anthony gave you, you might be able to get that on a consistent basis from a guy like Anthony Simons. Anthony Simons is a 20-point per game scorer in this league who can shot create, shoot off the catch, and play out of the pick and roll. And I think if you give a pick and roll partner to Paolo and make his game even more versatile, you'll be a lot more of a dangerous of a team. Switching gears to the Western Conference play-in, the Warriors and Grizzlies. This was a much better game. The Grizzlies came out on fire, and then quickly the Warriors started to run them out of the gym and gain a lead. And then again, the Grizzlies kept fighting. Desmond Bane was phenomenal. We had a very unfortunate moment when Ja Morant turned his ankle. I walked away from this game feeling a couple ways, though. What as theatrical as this was, as fun as it was, I thought the Warriors were going to handle this very easily, or a lot easier than they did. And we looked at this matchup, and a conversation for weeks heading into the playoffs was who's going to be matched up with the Rockets, and are you taking the Rockets? And a lot of people was like, oh, man, the Rockets could be that vulnerable team that will get upsetted because they don't have the experience, and the other teams are going to just have better talent. Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson are just going to be the two best players in that series. Steph Curry and Jimmy would be the two best. But when you watch that game, there's a world now where I'm allowing myself to remember that the Rockets, they don't have the star power of having a Steph Curry, right? They don't have a Jimmy Butler, but damn, do they have a really good team. Damn, are they well coached. Damn, defensively, can they really make the game tough, and they can get gritty. They're not going to back down. They have toughness. They have veteran leadership. Yeah, Jalen Green may not have playoff experience. Sengun won't, but Dylan Brooks does. Fred VanVleet does. Steven Adams does. Ime Udoka does. So I may be switching gears. I looked at the Warriors as a team that was going to be red hot, and I'm not sure. I'm not all the way sure. There were certain things, again, in this game where the Warriors just kind of – I'm not even – like, they were able to punk Zach Edey. I'll give you that. I don't know if you're doing that to Steven Adams. And I'm not saying that the Houston Rockets are going to play the way that the Grizzlies did, right? Like, Ime is not going to be like, hey, man, just dump it down to Steven Adams because we got a size advantage, and let's slow up our offense and try to feed the post like it's fucking 2002. They're not going to do that. But when he does get the ball, when he does get offensive rebounds, if he does have to make a play, he's going to be – Steven Adams and Sengun will be a lot more comfortable than Zach Edey looked. And Zach Edey was supposed to, and I think I even saw in a halftime show, it was Shaq or maybe Chuck. They made the point that I think everybody at home was making. We know the issues that you have defensively when playing against somebody like Steph Curry, right? Like, they're going to do a bunch of screens, split action. They're going to try to put him in a bunch of different shit. Laterally, it's just going to be impossible for him to keep up with that. You kind of give that up by thinking because they're smaller, we'll throw him the ball. He'll get somebody in foul trouble. He'll get to the line, or he'll just get these easy twos and these offensive rebounds. And there were times where he did get an offensive rebound. There was time where he did get a little putback dunk, or he'll finish there. But it was at one point in the game, I look up and Zach Edey is shooting 2 of 8 from the field. He's getting the ball and they doubling, and he's turning the ball over, looking soft as shit, looking unsure of himself. And again, in a 7-game series, is very different than a 1 game, right? Single game elimination. Maybe they just called Zach Edey on a bad day. Maybe that was just the reality of it. But point still standing. I don't think you're going to have that issue if you're the Rockets. And I think the Rockets will have certain lineups that can match the small ball. And I think the Rockets are going to be better defensively. Who is the Grizzlies' point of attack defender in any of this? Who could they have put on Jimmy Butler realistically? You know what I mean? Who are they going to put on Steph Curry? You have the Amin Thompsons, the Tari Easons, the Dylan Brooks of the world. Fred VanVleet ain't backing down from any matchup. So I'm looking at this series, and I'm saying to myself, this is going to be one of those ones. This is going to be one of those ones. And we're going to go back into that one because we're now going to transition into ranking each playoff series based off what I'm excited for. Obviously, we still have the Bulls versus Heat, which I'm recording this on a Wednesday. They'll be playing tonight. And then the Kings and Mavs will also play tonight as the second half of the play-in. And then once we get those results, we'll know who is playing the Cavs and then the Thunder in the first round. Because the Grizzlies will play the Kings or the Mavs. And then the Bulls Heat will play the Hawks, which is going to be very exciting. I got the Bulls winning that game against the Miami Heat. And I have the Kings winning the game against the Mavs. That's just me. Obviously go either or way. So with that being understood and out the way, I'm now going to go into ranking each series for my own personal preference and what I'm most excited for. The number one series for me might surprise some people. Hey, that Nuggets and that Clippers, that 4-5 matchup out west. This series is going to be must-see TV for me. The way that Kawhi has looked to end the regular season and go into the playoffs, the way that the Clippers have looked, has been phenomenal. That last game, them going against the Warriors, putting the Warriors into the play-in position, The performances that Kawhi had, the performance that James Harden had, the way that James Harden looked at that overtime, hitting those 2 big threes. I've been a big fan of Zubac all year long. He made my All-NBA team. You got the defenders in Derrick Jones Jr., Chris Dunn. You have Norman Powell. Nick Batum has playoff experience. Tyronn Lue coaches his ass off in almost all of his playoff series. He's figuring out a scheme as we speak that's going to throw a curveball to the Nuggets in some form or fashion. And then on the other side, you have a Nuggets team who was the headline of last episode, firing Mike Malone and Calvin Booth for just clearing house a week before the playoffs. But then on top of that, you still have the best player in the world, Nikola Jokic. You still have high-value role players that complement what he does, which always is going to keep them as a factor and a team that you can't rule out or disrespect at all. And then you have, on top of everything, Jamal Murray is going to play in the playoffs from what we know. He's going to give it a go, which is something that I've gotten accustomed to over the course of his career. No matter how banged up he is, he's going to play in the important games if he can play. Jamal Murray is going to play through injury, and he's a playoff riser. And again, he complements Nikola Jokic as perfect as anybody else potentially in the NBA. And then around them, you have a Christian Braun, who's an MIP candidate. He took his game up to a whole different level. You still have a sniper in Michael Porter Jr., regardless of what you think about him in the regular season, or if he should have done more, should have done less. Everything is a clean slate. He's still a guy who can make 5-6 threes in a game and win it for them. And then Aaron Gordon, he's going to be a guy that they're going to probably put on Kawhi Leonard because of the size. Kawhi won't be able to bully him as much, and he's going to just take that assignment and hopefully be able to negate Kawhi in some form or fashion. So I'm looking at that as my number one series that I'm anticipating. I think as of right now, I have the Clippers. I do have the Clippers winning that series in 6. I will say, though, that's a series that I'm understanding by picking the Clippers. I could look foolish in a week and a half because the Nuggets in every way since could win that series. They also have home court advantage. We know the altitude always plays a certain, role for the Denver Nuggets as a home court advantage situation. The second series, one that I think could arguably be number one. And I still don't even know which way I'm going to swing. Like the 3-6 matchup, that's the Lakers versus the Timberwolves. This matchup is going to be phenomenal, and I hope we get 7 games of this. You have the new look Lakers with Luka Doncic and LeBron James. This is their first playoff series together. This is J.J. Redick's first playoff series as a head coach. The way that they played after the trade was completed, really, really motivated, really locked in defensively on one accord. The way J.J. Redick has shown in his first year coaching that he can put together certain schemes. When he is locked in and was dialed in, that Denver Nugget game is going to stay in my mind forever because he talked about, man, I was up 3 days putting together a game plan for that game, and to see how it worked and to see what it was able to do, to see how some of those guys bought in defensively after the trade was done. And when they were at their best, they looked really dangerous defensively, running around everywhere, covering all type of ground. You may get that locked in this again because it's playoff now. It's playoff basketball. The Crypto Center is going to be electric in game 1, right? But on the flip side, you have a team that has Anthony Edwards. He's a playoff riser. He's a moments guy. He is ready for each and every moment. You also have Jaden McDaniels, who I think does a really good job against Luka Doncic. But then you also have Rudy. And they're going to try to go at Rudy because Luka Doncic loves to switch with big man and love to get his shit off when a big is guarding him and do his 1-2. But again, my favorite part about the Timberwolves is the depth, right? Naz Reid is coming off that bench. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is coming off that bench. And another guy who I'm extremely familiar with in playoff basketball, Dante DiVincenzo, is coming off that bench. And I think that gives them a little bit of an advantage in the depth department. Obviously, the Lakers are star heavy. Their top 2 is going to outweigh Minnesota's top 2. But from a team overall standpoint, I think the Timberwolves, they take edge in that conversation with having those 3 guys come off the bench. Now, it's a big series for Julius Randle, and I saw a quote from him saying that this is probably the most he's ever had to play for in a playoff series. He missed all of last year's playoffs with a shoulder injury, where the Knicks was able to beat the Philadelphia 76ers, and then we ultimately succumbed to some of the injuries we had, and we lose to the Indiana Pacers in the second round. I know it sucked for him to miss out on that, And I know he has that itch to prove himself. He also has money on the line, right, with a player option. He could decline or accept. This will mean a lot for him going into a potential free agency summer. He needs to go out and prove that he can be an effective player, that he can have strong moments in the playoffs, and that he can be a winning player. Because I think the perfect version of Julius Randle is on a team like the Minnesota Timberwolves, where you have a star player already solidified, you have defensive elements with a Rudy Gobert defensive anchoring center who's a DPOY guy in the conversation each and every year. You have an all defensive wing in Jaden McDaniels. You have a veteran point guard in Mike Conley. Anthony Edwards is a two-way guard. This is a situation I think that Julius Randle and his team should have dreamed of being in. He can still be one of the guys who can score the basketball. He's such a good rebounder. That plays into what they like to do, cleaning the glass. And then he also could be a secondary option of creating plays. And this is going to be a series where a lot of people are projecting and predicting the Lakers are going to blitz the hell out of Anthony Edwards. They're going to blitz him. It's already been something that's been talked about that he struggled with. He talked about watching film on Luka, ironically, to figure some of those things out and to get better, and he showed some progress. But I think the Lakers are still going to take that approach of getting the ball out of his hands and seeing what Rudy, Randle, even Jaden McDaniels can do by having the ball in their hands a little bit more. And they're going to take the approach of anybody but Anthony Edwards is going to have to beat us. And so I think this is where Julius Randle can come and make himself some money by being able to be a guy who's getting the ball out of that trap and being able to make sound decisions and making the defense play. If you're going to take two guys to take out Anthony Edwards and you're going to give us a 4-on-3, if I'm Julius Randle, I have to be able to make this defense pay for that, whether that's me hitting my mid-range shot, getting to the basket, getting to the free throw line, spraying out to Dante DiVincenzo's of the world for shots, kicking it out to a Naz Reid when he's in for Rudy, spacing the floor, or going and putting somebody on a poster, because Julius Randle is more than capable of doing that. So I think Julius Randle is going to be a big X factor for this series. Ultimately, I am going to go Lakers in 6. But I do hope I regret that. I want to see the Timberwolves come out and make this series very eventful. And I want to see Julius Randle prove to us and himself that he can be more than effective in a playoff series. My next matchup is going to have us go across the conference. Another 3-6 matchup. Now my team is involved. You have the 3-seeded New York Knicks headed against the Detroit Pistons. A lot of people might have this as their number one, and I won't be mad at you, because this is prototypical playoff basketball that I think a lot of the old heads kind of get at when they mention a certain type of physicality, a certain type of toughness, a certain type of intensity that you're missing in today's basketball. I think you get it in this series. The reason I think you get it number one is because that's the swagger of Detroit basketball. And I talked about it a little bit on numbers on the board. There are certain teams, maybe certain players or people in individual sports that kind of become the culture of an organization. And the comparison I made for the Pistons was almost like the Bears here in Chicago. When the Bears are good, the defense has to be a part of it. That's just what the Bears are. Since the beginning of time, the Bears, the Midway Monsters, they just should have a stingy, gritty defense that's just in your face, knocking you down. That's just a certain toughness that the Bears are supposed to embody as a team. That's what Bear fans want when they say a nice winning team. Bear fans ain't never looking, and I know it's crazy because we got Caleb Williams. You know what I mean? We're going to make it work. But Bear fans, I don't think will ever get behind a Chicago Bears team that's just a flashy offensive team that don't really got a good defense. It's just putting up points. Now, if that team brings home a Super Bowl, beggars can't be choosers. Bears fans is going to deal with it. But if Bears fans had to design their Super Bowl team, it's going to be like an 85 Bears team that is, you got a sexy running back. And then you're going to have a tenacious defense that's just shutting people down. It's almost like the Bears I grew up on in 05, 06, 07, Lance Briggs and Urlacher and Peanut Tillman and Tommy Harris and Nathan Vasher. That was a team that was led by, Rex Grossmans and Kyle Ortons of the world. We didn't have some crazy, sexy, all-pro, all-world quarterback with high-paying wide receivers and shit like that. No, we had a defense that was stingy, that was grimy, that was tough, and that was there to kick your ass. And I say all that to say that's what the bad boy Pistons are. when you think about the 90s Pistons, or even before the 90s, when you think about the early 90s Pistons, and you think about the mid-2000s Pistons, right? You think about Ben Wallace, tough as nails, laying you flat on your ass when you come into the paint. He's going to lay you out. Same thing with Bill Laimbeer. You think about the craziness and I'll do whatever, say whatever of Rasheed Wallace in the front court next to a Ben Wallace. You think about the bad boy, original bad boy Pistons. Dennis Rodman is that for that team. He wasn't as crazy as he was with the Bulls, but he was still Dennis Rodman. He was still a pain in the ass to deal with on the offensive glass. He's trying to get every offensive rebound. He's also Defensive Player of the Year at that time, so he's in people's face. They're doing a cross matchup. His whole point of being out on the floor is to take you out of your game. And then you have tough as nails backcourt, Joe Dumars, who we talked about earlier, getting the Pelicans job. He was a grimy, gritty two-guard who was ready to defend. Same thing with Isaiah Thomas. And you think about Chauncey Billups, Rip Hamilton, Tayshaun Prince, Lindsey Hunter. Just tough as nails. That's what the Pistons are supposed to be. And I think this 2025 team, almost 20 years later, is similar in certain parts. Jalen Duren is a big physical center who's not backing down from shit. Isaiah Stewart, we know what he's about. We know what Isaiah Stewart is about. He damn near he's trying to get juices flowing to get himself going. He looking for a fight. He looking to pick some shit up. Asar Thompson, he's a little bit more quiet and reserved on some Tayshaun Prince shit, but he ain't nothing to be fucked with either. He's not backing down from nothing, and neither is Cade Cunningham. And you got Malik Beasley. He gonna talk his shit, do his little dance to irritate you. Ron Holland is tough. You got a nice veteran to keep it all calm and tamed, and a Tobias Harris. So I think this series is going to embody a lot of that. And on the flip side, Tom Thibodeau is an old-fashioned coach. All of his teams have played with a certain toughness. This may be a little bit more of an offensive team for him, but you're still going to get toughness from a Josh Hart. You're still going to get a toughness from Jalen Brunson. You're still going to get a toughness from OG. You know what I mean? That there's still going to be a toughness there. Our thing is we want Mikal Bridges. We want Karl-Anthony Towns to be able to match that level of toughness. And I'm glad that we were able to get a taste of what the Pistons are going to do at the end of the season. They were one of the last games we played because we now get a picture in our minds real recent of what to expect in the playoffs. And ultimately, I'm going Knicks in 6. But I do think this is going to be entertaining in the sense of you're going to get that Eastern Conference basketball. You're going to get some of that 90s, some of that mid-2000s, some of that energy. Because Isaiah Stewart is going to try to put somebody on the ass. I can see Jalen Brunson trying to bait foul, go in the paint, do his thing, manipulate. That's what 6-foot guards should do. And I can see somebody like Isaiah Stewart saying, "Oh shit, I'm getting a foul anyway. I'm gonna make him remember. I'm gonna make him remember what it feels like when you come into this lane." And then you're gonna have somebody like Josh Hart saying, "That's what we doing. Say less. Y'all coming here. I'm putting one of y'all on y'all ass. You set a screen. I'm running through it. And then we're gonna get some rivalry. We're gonna get some shit going. I'm gonna be talking my shit as a Knicks fan on the timeline. I saw a Pistons fan that was like, "Man, P, you ready for these Pistons fans?" I said, "No, I ain't going back and forth with no Pistons fans. Those like my cousins. We right here in the Midwest. You know what I mean? I'm on here to say right now, live, I lied. I told him, like, what's that Drake line? I told him that we put that shit behind us, but I lied. I'm talking my shit. I want all smoke. I wasn't gonna waste time because what you do is you let it be known, and then what they want to do is they want to spend all of the days before the series going back and forth. I'm not doing that. I got a job. I got podcasts and shit to prepare for. I want to talk my shit when it's time to talk the shit. Don't tell me what y'all about to do. Why do all that when we're about to get it right now? But I'm going to talk my shit before the series. I don't talk my shit when we up. Or I'm not going to wait for the Knicks to go up 2-0 or 3-0 and be like, yeah, look, what's up? No, I'm talking my shit 0-0, but I'm not about to spend the first week while we wait for the series going back and forth. That's not what I'm doing. So, yeah, I lied. Can't trust me. I'm grimy. I'll backdoor you. I told y'all it was cool. I made a lot of Pistons fans think, oh, it's going to be nothing. No, fuck that. No. You should know better. We'll keep it respectful, but best believe I am rooting for the Knicks. I'm going to do my job as an analyst. I'm going to make my prediction. If the Pistons were the better team, I would say that I got the Pistons in 6, but I would say that I'm hoping that the Knicks win. Luckily for me, the Knicks are the better team. So I got the Knicks in 6. And if you feel a way about it, Guess what? Fuck you. Next series. The fourth series I have ranked is the Rockets versus the Warriors. Again, I talked about it after I reviewed the play-in games. You love the way that the Warriors played after acquiring Jimmy Butler. It just rejuvenated everything. They got on one accord. Jimmy Butler did all of the right things. Steph Curry was cooking. He's still cooking. Draymond became the Defensive Player of the Year favorite all of a sudden because Jimmy Butler came in there and he had something to play for. And now everything, AirPods started getting his shit up. Like, perfect. Because I do think you need the Warriors to be in the mix. It makes the league better. You talk about a year of having parity, the Cavs, Celtics, the Thunder, and it just felt like it was just a Thunder out west. But you still have to respect the Nuggets. You have to respect LeBron and Luka. You have to respect Draymond's, Kerr, and Steph. And you really have to respect it now that Jimmy is in the situation there. And is there another team I'm thinking about? Well, you have to respect the Clippers. Healthy Kawhi is always scary. And the Timberwolves ain't no joke. So it just makes it for a better conversation of what could happen. But I've seen some things now. The Clippers game that the Warriors needed, and this Grizzlies game. And I'm not saying that it's an identifier for how they're going to be or perform in a 7-game series. It's totally different, right? Being able to prepare for a team for 7 games, that's the only team you're thinking about. That's the only team you got in your mind. Matchups is always big. I think that's important. But I think that advantage goes to the Rockets as well. I think I'm going to go Houston Rockets in 7, y'all. I talked a lot of shit about the Warriors, how good the Warriors are, and all of that I said is still true. It's still prominent. And again, this could be something that I may change. I may wake up tomorrow and be like, you know what? I'm going with the Warriors in 7. But hear me clearly. I think Fred VanVleet, Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, Amin Thompson, Sengun, Jabari, Tari Eason. I don't see those guys backing down. Steven Adams, if I didn't name him already. I think the Rockets have a really good thing going. I think they know who they are. And I think they're not number 2 as a mistake. I get it. In another one of these series, I'm going to lean on like a guy. But being able to see what and I'm not saying Amin Thompson is going to just shut out Steph Curry again. I'm not saying he's going to do that at all. But knowing that he has some level of success for a 7-game series with a defensive mastermind like Ime, I got the Rockets figuring some shit out, man. I got the Rockets figuring some shit out. And I do believe that they know how to use their size. So you want to play Draymond at the 5 and do all of that shit? Cool. We've seen the Rockets play lineups where Sengun and Adams are on the floor together. We've seen it. We've seen games where Fred has taken over. We've seen games where Jalen Green has taken over. We've seen games where Amin Thompson hit a game winner in Boston. Dylan Brooks has had nights. Tari Eason can come in and change the game. And shout out to the to the Eason family. Condolences to them. Y'all know we got much love for Mama Eason, Tari Eason, and the whole family. So condolences to them. I'm wishing them well as they gear up and prepare for the playoffs. Obviously, they tell you ball is life. Life is much bigger than basketball. So we want to send well wishes to them, obviously. But yeah, I believe that the Rockets are not at number 2 out of luck. I think that there's something there. I buy into what they're able to do defensively. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. Steph Curry is a bad motherfucker. And also, like, I know we tired of having this conversation. I'm tired of having it. You watch these games, and it's just like, does Draymond have any awareness? Like yesterday they got a call, and he was talking crazy to the ref. I'm like, Draymond, y'all got the call. Y'all got the call. I seen Jimmy Butler walk up to him like, Dre, because it's just like the stakes are higher now. I don't know, man. I'm not gonna have a conversation again. I love Draymond, the basketball player. I love what he's able to do. I love the IQ. I love how he defends. I love him. I'm a big Draymond Green fan. But as much of a fan as I am, I'm never going to be able to grasp why he can't turn that shit off in certain moments. Why he isn't aware of the circumstances that those actions can have on the team, whether that's a technical foul, an ejection, whatever. I just think he still straddles that line too much, and the right or wrong ref could easily just say, "Foop, tee it up." This show, they could, "Foop, boop, 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 boop." And yeah, I don't know. So we'll see how he handles himself in that series, because those young guys are trying to get under that skin. They already got some type of little beef because Tari Eason wore that shirt or whatever and all that bullshit, and Ime said whatever he said to Steph. There's some shit brewing here. They're going to try to – that's what the Rockets do. They poke, kind of like the Pistons. The Rockets got some swagger of like, fuck you. Like Dylan Brooks is going to do what he does. Tari is going to do what he does. Amin Thompson, like his brother's silent killer, but he's still going to do little shit. Fred VanVleet comes from that Raptors team with Ibaka and Gasol and Kawhi. They're irritants. Ime is called LeBron out of his name and had that shit. He's done the shit with that. Like, you know how he is. So he's coaching them up to be that. Like, hey man, hey, give me Rockets in 7. This series gonna be must see TV. I might have to move them up. 4 may be too low. Give me Rockets in 7. I didn't even know I was gonna spend that much time on them. The 5th series is the Pacers versus Bucks, and the reason I talked about what I said in the Rockets versus Warriors series is you want it to be as simple as, oh man, they have Steph, so I'm gonna go with the Warriors. I respect the Pacers. I love the season that they've had. They're a really, really, really good team. The Pacers are a really, really, really good team. They could easily have an Eastern Conference Finals appearance. It will be tough. I'm not picking them to do that, but like if that happened, I wouldn't be like, oh my goodness, where did this come from? Kind of like the Rockets, except they have a little bit more of the star power up top. All NBA talent in Tyrese Halliburton, all NBA talent in Pascal Siakam, all defensive talent in Miles Turner. Not saying any of those guys are locks to get it this year, but every year they're in the conversation. Tyrese should be an all-NBA lock, though. You have all of that. In between that 3, you have Andrew Nembhard, who I love. You have Aaron Nesmith, who did a great job turning his career around since leaving Boston and ending up with them. Benedict Mathurin, TJ McConnell. You know what I mean? Obi Toppin, if I didn't mention him already. You have a lot going on there. You have depth, versatility, shooting, size, defense, playmaking, slow it down in a half court. You have couple isolation guys like a Pascal Siakam can get his own shit. You have a lot there. The Bucks, on the other hand, they're anticipated to not have Dame for the early part of this series. But the way Giannis has been locked in, I think I have to lean Bucks. And I feel bad because the Pacers, it's nothing to do with them. You know what I mean? It's not you, it's me type shit. Pacers, y'all ain't do nothing wrong. Y'all a really good team. It's just that Giannis is, to me, on another level. He's on another level. He has a chip on his shoulder. And I think the Bucks, out of any team in these playoffs, the Bucks are easily a team that can go and be uncharacteristically good. You can look at how Kyle Kuzma shot over the course of the season. I could easily see Kyle Kuzma going into a series and playing like a whole different player. Gary Trent Jr. could easily be like, you know what, I'm going to shoot 47% from 3 this series. Who knows what type of Brook Lopez you're going to get. He's such an older player. We've seen even in the season, there were certain moments where it was like, damn, Brook Lopez still got it like that. Kevin Porter Jr., over the stretch of without Dame has looked like a different player. Like, this is a team who we can look at the regular season and we can tear them apart, find different holes, and they still exist. They're not going to completely turn around and be this completely different team. They're just the best team ever all of a sudden. I'm not saying that. But I think they could be good enough to make this series a series and ultimately have a chance of winning it. So I'm going to go Bucks in 7. Giannis does not, on a regular, have an answer across from him. He damn sure ain't got it against the Pacers. What they doing for Giannis? What are they doing for Giannis? It's nothing they're going to be able to do. And I could see him easily walking into the series, giving you 36, 35, 14, and 11. Easily. The same type of numbers he had to wrap up the season. I am prepared to come on this podcast later and be like, you know what? Shout out to the Pacers. They handle business. I'm prepared. I know that they don't have Damian Lillard. I'm aware. But he's improving with his health. and they're only ruling him out at the beginning of the series. So if on any occasion he's playing past game 3, that changes drastically for me. But even if he doesn't, the way that Giannis has played has made me a believer in what he can do. And I just think that Giannis is the scariest player in the world when he has that chip on his shoulder. And he's been playing like that to wrap up the season. They're playing really, really good basketball there. And it's a familiarity, right? There's some history there. There's some tension stemming from last season. So I got the Bucks and 7 on that one. My last 2 series, or the last couple of them, I guess the Thunder and whoever play will be my 6th ranked thing. If the Thunder play the Grizzlies, I'll project the Grizzlies. I don't know what's going on with Ja Morant, his ankle, but he should have a couple of days to get better, and I'll still take the Grizzlies over the Kings or the Mavericks, whoever wins that game. I think the Thunder, I think they do what they do. Maybe if they're fully healthy and Ja Morant is okay with his ankle, maybe the Grizzlies can compete for one game. But I'll take the Thunder in 4 or 5. Celtics Magic, I think maybe, you always give a team a chance to get one at home or something. Maybe they win game 4. They don't get swept. They win it. But ultimately, I got the Celtics in 4 or 5. And then the Cavs, whoever the Cavs play, whether that's the Hawks, the Heat, or the Bulls, they got Cavs in 4. The last 3 series, I would love to be able to break it down. Man, if the Magic can do that, I'm sorry, man. Celtics are just too good. Celtics are too good. The Grizzlies have a lot going on. They really do. And with the Ja injury, I think that's going to take them a bit back. In a perfect world, the Grizzlies will be on point, and this could be a matchup. But if the Grizzlies were on point, they probably wouldn't be in this position anyway. I really think they're missing Brandon Clark, especially after watching the playing game last night. I think he would have gave them a really good look and made them a little bit more mobile. And then again, the status of Ja Morant with his ankle just kind of throws you a curveball. Won't be an easy matchup for the Thunder, but the Thunder should still take care of business. They still should be able to take care of business. I just don't see an answer for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Not saying that Jalen Wells is the end-all, be-all to any matchup, but having him helps you a lot, and not having him is going to be an issue for the Grizzlies. And if they're even the team that advances, because, again, I don't know what's going on with Ja Morant. But, yeah, man, that's the way I'm ranking these playoff series. And, like we talked about it briefly on the show, like, the playoffs are always interesting because the regular season don't really mean much. I'm not going to say it doesn't mean anything, right? Like, how a guy played, Cade Cunningham should be very good in the Knicks series. He's Cade Cunningham, right? Like, he should be good. But I'm not thinking that because I saw what he averaged against the Knicks in 4 games. I'm thinking that because it's Cade Cunningham. He's good. He's always good. He's good against anybody he plays, right? Like, Giannis is going to be good. He's going to be a monster. I'm not taking based off what I said, based off how the matchup against the Pacers. And we talked about it a little bit. I literally stopped thinking like that when I grew up and the Bulls were taking care of business against the Miami Heat. And you go in the playoffs, you're like, hey, look how they played them. The Heat ain't care about that shit. The Heat would won that shit in 5. And I remember at that time being like, you know what? I'm never thinking like that again. Like, the regular season, it matters. Again, I don't want to say it don't matter at all. It matters. But it don't matter that much to where it's that simple. Oh, man, they beat them twice in the regular season, so they going to beat them twice in the playoffs. They swept them in the regular season. They're going to sweep them in the playoffs. They won the series. It just ain't that simple. It's just not that simple. There's so much context that's missed. Some of those records, teams played each other the first week of the season. Teams are not who they are in April as they were in October. You know what I mean? Trades have happened, injuries, guys missed this game, sat out that game. It's just the reality of it. So, even like I said with the Bucks, they're a different team with Dame than they are without Dame. And that sounds like Captain Obvious, but that's just the truth. Guys have bigger roles. They're playing a little bit more better. They can play a little bit more freely, knowing that, hey, coach has to play me, right? There is no Damian Lillard. So if I'm Kevin Porter Jr., I can just be me. I can do exactly what I want to do because what are the other options? So shout out to them. But, yeah, man, I think this is going to be the most exciting playoff run that we've had in years. Talk about parity, man. Talk about parity. We saw it in college basketball. They tried to dumb it down because we didn't have Cinderellas or whatever. We had good basketball. And regardless of my predictions, I can miss all of them. I can be 0 of 8 of all of the predictions I just made. As long as we get good basketball, I would care less. Playoff basketball. This is the year. Trust me. Remember who said it first. Hey, that's another great edition of Tee It Up with yours truly, Pierre Pee Wee the Plug Andreessen. Shout out to Christian, Kat, and Maddie, the team, for helping put together another good episode. I do want to say, make sure y'all get in those comments now and let me know everything that you agree with or disagree with, or your own predictions for what the playoffs and everything is going to look like. Because my biggest pet peeve is us podcasters. Like, we doing numbers on the board or on Tee It Up now. We go out, we put our predictions on the front line, and shit goes right. But in the world of being an analyst, shit goes wrong. You know what I mean? If you shoot 100% from the field, something ain't right. That's what I always say. Something ain't right. You was holding back or you played it a little too safe. But with all that being said, what y'all like to do is y'all like to get on our ass like, oh, man, you predicted that, ha, ha. But y'all don't put y'all predictions out there. And then y'all be like, man, I knew this was going to happen. I knew that they were going to win in 5. You know what I'm saying? So let it be known in the comments now what y'all predictions are, what you're seeing, how you feel about every single thing. I don't want y'all to be those people that's talking about. That's what me and Christian talked about with the bracket stuff. You know what I'm saying? You run into somebody and they was like, man, no, I had that upset in my other bracket. No. There is no other bracket. You either pick that team or you did. So I don't want y'all to fall in line with that. But as always, we appreciate y'all. We will see y'all next week. Playoff basketball is here. Let's get it.